want to give you a project overview of what we're going to be discussing. My name is Brandon Goldberg. I'm the assistant administrator here. We have Tom Valenti, our director of engineering and public works, Sal Salsa, our superintendent of parks, Alex Oros, our landscape architect, and Susan Malika, our grant writer. The city is currently an applicant for competitive grant funding from the Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Park Development Funding Program and the Urban Parks Grant for the renovation and restyling of amenities to the Joyce Kilmer Park. The city qualifies for maximum funding due to population data that identifies it as a highly populated, densely populated urban municipality. Further, New Jersey's environmental justice law classifies the city of New Brunswick as an overburdened community subject to adverse cumulative stressors. According to a report prepared by the Trust for Public Land, Joyce Kilmer Park would benefit by such renovations that would encourage residents to utilize new and exciting recreational and social features, as well as safety enhancements within this highly used park. It serves as a recreational and athletic facility to the community and is used for special programming and events run by the city and other associated organizations like New Brunswick Tomorrow. If awarded, these two grant sources could yield the city up to $1.9 million of funding to renovate Joyce Kilmer Park. To hone the city's concept plan, the city seeks input from park owners and the general public regarding this possible renovation through an online survey in English and Spanish on the city's website, within the direction from the city's news and social media outlets, and several public hearings through the Parks and Gardens Commission, the Environmental Commission, the Historical Association, the Senior Resource Center, New Brunswick Tomorrow, and the larger scope general public hearings scheduled for tonight that you all are here with. And there will also be an on-site survey interviews of residents who utilize the park. Just as a bit of a background about the park, Joyce Kilmer Park is 3.87 acres of heavily used recreational space located on Joyce Kilmer Avenue between Comstock and Delavan Streets. The grounds provide a comfortable area of mixed sun, shade, and dappled shade in mostly residential area, bordered by a small store on one side, the Board of Education Administration building on the other, parking areas on both sides, and the New Jersey Transit Railway along the back of the property. It is located within a densely populated residential area of homes and apartments in close proximity to A.C. Redshaw Elementary School, the Aunt Emma Temple, St. Mary's Church, and the New Brunswick Middle School. The park is accessed by students walking home from community schools in addition to daily sports, athletic, and cultural usage. There are no other parks for these residents within walking distance of their homes that doesn't necessitate crossing the highway. The park is in dire need of renovation with additional many safety enhancements. An illustration of the park noting current amenities and the draft concept plan for the renovated park have been provided by our Parks Department. And when we finish, take a closer look at these boards. According to the Trust for Public Land report that the city had commissioned several years ago, the Parks Department came up with these following concepts. A new welcome identification signage at both entrances to the park. The appropriate Americans with Disabilities access to the park. Enhanced crosswalks at the park entrances from Delavan and Comstock Streets. Safety enhancements from the two parking lots, curbing, and adjacent walkways around and into the park. An installation of a security station at the park storage building inside the park that would accommodate the far views of the park, far views of sites within the park. Parking spaces added to drive area of maintenance building on Comstock Street, with also including new fencing. Regrading the new playground area and the adjacent locations. A perimeter walking running loop with fitness stations. Installation of a pervious brick paver sidewalk into the park to connect to the walking loop. Reconditioning of the baseball field and all-purpose soccer field that would include new bleachers and a new roof on the dugout. The basketball court is to be reconditioned and updated and some for the playground area and protection. A shaded fitness circuit with exercise stations. A second water feature, also known as a splash pad, to accommodate the larger number of residents utilizing it during the summer months. Modify the existing splash pad to better accommodate drainage. New drainage modifications to tie into underground stormwater piping to ease the passage of water standards that generally exceed those required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. and result in accommodating people with disabilities to the greatest degree feasible. I'm sorry, I think I skipped a piece of this, but yep, that's part of a completely inclusive playground with the Americans with Disabilities Act. We also have proposed play equipment outlined to play with near the benches. A picnic area for families and their friends to spend recreational time together in the park. A sectioned community garden. Overall landscaping and planting of native trees, shrubs, and flowers. A connection to the proposed walkway in the center of the park. An additional proposed landscaping along the property line adjacent to the railroad tracks. A public survey went live on the city website on January 22nd and will remain open until 4 p.m. on February 21st. It is available in both English and Spanish, and all are invited to participate, and also very much encouraged to participate. At this time, I'd ask if anybody would like to take a look at these plans, and then we are all here for any questions that you might have.
So the plan on your right hand, these are existing conditions, and the plan on the left are the proposed improvements, which summarize what Brendan just read.
Could you elaborate on the crosswalk enhancements?
Yeah, currently there is, at the Delvane crosswalk, there was an attempt to put an in-road crosswalk system, which unfortunately in this climate they failed with the freeze thaw of winter. So we would change those to flashing crosswalk signs and upgrade those. Probably paint, enhance and make it brighter. Anytime we brighten any intersection, it reduces the interaction between automobiles and pedestrians. In both cases, we would do that.
Okay.
Both in Comstock and at Delvane.
Thank you.
But I encourage everybody to come take a look at the plans. And we'll be here for a while.
Brandon, I just want to just thank the city team for assembling all this. I think it's fantastic. The community's here. I hope everyone feels comfortable to give feedback, because the purpose of today is to make sure we hear you. So please come and let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting this together, and I did have a couple questions kind of from the list of improvements where they're reflected on the plans. So the picnic, kind of family picnic area that was described, where would that be?
Well, that's pretty much in the area where the canopy is now.
Okay, yeah.
We're gonna just widen it a little bit more. And we're gonna have a few picnic tables under the large oak tree near the adjacent to the spray park.
Okay, okay. Yeah. And I know, I think many of you are aware, especially the last few years, safety has been a big concern in the park, and so I was glad to hear that that's being acknowledged. But just if you could say a little more about the safety lookout, I think it was described, and how that functions.
Well, the goal is between the two existing bathroom doors is to put some type of structure, block or even a shed, something, nothing very big, to be used as a police post or a ranger substation.
Okay.
We're going to be adding 3 parking spots on the inside of the gated area where the garage is, which we use the turnaround area, where we could park a police car or a ranger vehicle, something that could be parked there, permanently. So it looks like there's, some type of police presence there.
Okay. Makes sense.
I will.
And then the proposed garden.
That's over behind the baseball field, it's at Delvane Street.
The Delvane dead ends.
We're at dead ends.
Okay, so that kind of empty
Right.
spot between the dead end of the park and
The
the
fence,
dugouts.
right, the fence and the backstop of the baseball
Gotta
field.
make sure we got nice sun, so we don't want heavy shade.
We're gonna have to take down a couple of cedar trees that are existing, just to get some sun in there.
That is one of the questions that I have about the trees. What's the plan for the management of the existing trees and the site?
I'm sorry.
What's the plan for the maintenance throughout the construction phase of the trees that exist there currently? I think last year there were 8 additional trees planted in celebration, so
We're not going to be removing any trees. There's going to be very minimal disturbance. We're trying to use the existing footprint where the existing asphalt pads or the walkways are. We remove the pavers in there. Pervious pavers. So we shouldn't have to do much. I mean, we're going to take obviously some safety precaution and, make sure that the roots are not cut into in certain areas.
So if anything, we're gonna add
Right.
significant plantings.
Yes. Quite a bit along the perimeters.
Especially on the perimeters.
Yes.
Excellent, that was my question. Trees, shrubs, I heard flowers in there.
Trees, most screening, along the Delaware Street side where the playground is. I want to create a buffer area there. I want to be able to fence in the playground area so parents don't have to worry about kids when they're
Great, that's a great
into the
idea.
street, they know where they are.
That's a good idea.
And I want to create, on the inside of the fence, a buffer area for trees and shrubs.
Yeah.
Just to dress it up, just at the playground area, just enhance it a
Yeah,
little.
all native, right, of course.
I'm sorry?
All native, of course, right? Native plantings.
All native, yes, of course,
Yeah,
yes.
that's why I said, of course,
Yes,
it
yes.
has. Okay, great. With respect to this security question that Charles brought up, do we ever consider cameras in the parks?
We have cameras.
We do.
We have cameras.
Right? I did not know that. Okay.
Well, they know the cameras are there, they just know how to hide,
Good, great, that's perfect then.
And,
Excellent.
Are they functional?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of illumination, what options are there? We're using LEDs, whites, and incandescents. Are we adding any additional illumination to the park?
Yes, underneath the canopy area, we're gonna add illumination. It'll be LED.
Are they going to be motion sensor or constantly on after dark?
Right now, it's important to remember that these are just concept plans, right?
Okay.
I anticipate this will be changing as.
There'll be photos out. If the canopy's too thick to use the power bank because it won't recharge. So similar to Baker Park, they will be hardwired, laying primarily in the canopy, underneath the canopy areas.
Okay.
That's great.
You mentioned hardwiring too. One of the residents just mentioned to me, right now there's not really any available electricity, right, for like events that happen there, for anyone to plug in. Is that something that's contemplated in the scope? I know at some other parks had trouble keeping this operational.
I'm glad you mentioned that, but yes, we can, put some type of electrical post, that you can know that type of services that you need, as far as like, if you need more than one post, and I'm sure we can add it into the concept.
The building that was replaced in 15, I believe, does have a new electrical service to it. I just don't know what currently spare, and there is some power available. But sometimes the power available, we have to control when, because then it becomes a nuisance issue. When there's non-planned events that are going on. So I believe in we have a little cabinet that you can get power by the amphitheater area, so in case you're doing something, you have power for that, we can certainly consider
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because the lights won't, if they're LED, which we will do LED, they consume about 1/10 the power that incandescents do, so I'm not concerned about the load of those lights. Plus, they last 8 times as long, so it's a home run and a home run.
If the funding is approved, what would be the anticipated construction timeline?
This type of fund has certain deadlines built into it. You have to do a preliminary assessment. Once the DP acknowledges that, then I think you have 180 days soon to get the plans to them. Either 100 or 100. There's time limits involved in
And
that.
then about 2 years after that.
Yeah.
2 years period performance after that.
And it takes about 4 months to probably bid by the public standard and bonds and places for region and award and you get all that in place and then start construction.
So probably shovels in the ground 2026, maybe early 20.
Maybe late 25, but most likely early 26.
And then there will be a final rendering, or is this?
Absolutely, in case we kept it a little bit on the simple side,
Yeah.
depending on the outcome of this meeting, then we can get the public input and we'll put a nice.
A little more details.
We'll get color backgrounds.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Any questions, sir?
Yeah, any question with the path, material, like what would it be constructed out of? The perimeter around the baseball field?
That's around the jogging pad?
Yeah.
Yeah, the long
That'll be
one.
stone dust.
Say it again.
Stone dust?
Similar to the, would have a
The
doodle
yellow part.
Okay. Gotcha.
packet stone dust.
And so you mentioned about like not removing trees around the perimeter, or you said not removing trees, but as my understanding is that path around the perimeter of the baseball field, there's quite a number of trees around there. So I was just curious.
They're about 12 feet off the fence line.
Got it, okay.
So you got plenty of room for, 4 or 5 foot.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure where the property line was.
Right.
I was just wondering. And then the other question I had was with the splash pad. So I'm Sally, I know you know who I am. I work with trees a lot. I'm an arborist that do tree work as well. But on a lot of what I had a concern with the location of the splash pad expansion, if that's what this, as I'm reading this, you have one, installing another one, basically significantly closer to 3 mature London plane trees right there. So what's like, it's my understanding all of that excavation is going to be within like a tree protection area. So I'm curious why the location would be picked to be right there, or is there an understanding that you need to work around it somehow? It seems like it's pretty close.
We
And that splash
have
pad-
enough room, so we're not going to disturb the roots of the trees if that's what you're concerned about. We're not going to be disturbing them too much. But we want to designate that area there for the spray park, right behind the basketball court, or next to the basketball court.
Okay.
There's a good 12 feet of distance from the edge of the court
Okay.
to where the edge of the splash pad starts. So we have plenty of room there. And I just want to designate that one section and have that whole area just it's got a little splash park type of feel, which is, removing the exercise equipment that's in that area now.
Right. Okay.
And we're going to be repositioning them along the jogging path.
Yeah. Okay.
So rather than having them, where they are, this way we get use out of, I don't encourage people to use that jogging path.
So I guess yeah. So then my question would be like, how big is that splash pad then? The same size.
It'll
as
be
ones
the
there?
same size. I mean, if we have to make it a little small, make it a little small, but then we're gonna have 2 walkways, one on one side of the tree, one on the other. So it's gonna be a loop going all the way around, and within those sidewalks, we're gonna have jets, spray jets. So as the kids are, running to the next spray pad, they're walking through, water arches.
That's a neat idea.
Okay. All right, yeah, I guess it just seems like it's going to be pretty close that you have, I mean, I'm speaking from my recollection, but you have 3 mature trees there's probably maybe 30 or 40 feet in between each one, and you're planning to excavate within, 10 feet of the base of the trees?
Yeah, but don't forget, we're only going 4 inches, so even if we have to come up just a little bit, it's okay. It's no different than the existing pad that's there now.
Okay,
It actually, the new pad is gonna be further away from the tree than the existing one is. So-
gotcha. Yeah, and right, I'm not saying the existence of it would be an issue, but the installation typically, that's what the excavation, the concrete, and like, are they running you have to run all the new drainage and everything around? Like that's laid out?
Yes, we're actually part of this, which you don't see on the plan. We're gonna run a storm line down Joyce Kilmer. Currently it's gravity from Comstock Street to Handy Street.
Okay,
It's also gravity from Delavan all the way to Rucker Street. It's just a mountain, but that's a nuisance when it travels over the over the gutter. So we're gonna add a storm system on the one side of Delavan, so it will be piped as opposed to running down the street.
okay,
And then we have some interior drainage mod to use that collection and get it, into the storm system.
okay. All right, I think I understand, thank you.
I have a question. I'm wondering if there would be consideration of adapting that spray pad plan to being something like a water pump, which might be a little less invasive. But something similar to like what the Watershed Institute might have over in Pennington with like channels that students can use to trap water and dam, which matches nicely with the science curriculum. I'm wondering if that might be something to keep in mind as a secondary feature if there were concerns about the installation impacting the trees.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with it, but we would definitely look into it.
If you have something, some kind of pictures or something you can send us, we can by all means take a look at that.
Absolutely.
By all means, you know, no, like a pump, and then they don't have a display.
Like the old school, you know, if you ever had a grandparent with them.
We call that a yard hydrant or a yard pump.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
And then have, let's see what you do, especially like here, right?
Hey Sal, we had an environmental commission meeting last night, and something came, actually two things came up that I think are worth mentioning. Someone brought up, I'm not familiar with either of these, but someone brought up the fact that there's a concern about safety issues because of the density of the trees, and people can hide behind trees or something like that.
That's why we're gonna light it up.
And I said, well, we can maybe thin out an area, and then if we're planting more, then we compensate. I'm sorry?
I'm talking about Joyce Kilmer.
Yeah, that's what, I don't know who brought it up.
I think the only place
Someone
people,
brought that up.
only place people hide is
Yeah.
like way back
Yeah.
by the railroad.
That's
Okay.
right.
Like,
I don't know, someone brought it up.
The canopy is dense, there's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. And certainly, there are shadows, but that's our intent to light that area up.
It's also elevated, so although you do have, shade,
Got a good-
it's elevated, so you do have
Got a good
view.
view, right, and if you have that security
Charles
station.
said the back area
Yeah.
is what.
Along the tracks is the biggest.
Yeah, and if you have that security station, a ranger or police officer, they got a good view then.
Well, between that and the jogging path, we're hoping to get some movement in that
Right.
area. Clean it up,
Right.
just
I don't know, someone,
But we find with increased use, it tends to drive out the undesirables.
undesirables.
Yeah.
The other thing was lead. If you're gonna be doing excavation or regrading, would there be lead testing of the soil after everything's done to make sure it, because you're churning up, this was another thing that was brought up last night at the meeting.
Well, lead typically is not present in the soil in that format unless it was illegally dumped.
Oh, okay.
This has been a park for decades. We can do, I guess, some cursory sampling. We just literally, just to give you an aside why I don't feel that's a big issue.
Right.
On Lee Avenue, we had miles of water main and sanitary main that are being replaced. There was a concern about some of the soils there. 98% of it came back clean fill, which is
right.
unbelievable.
Right.
Normally you get a little bit of hydrocarbon in the asphalt, or sometimes you see, because we're so old, you have wood ash and coal ash, and that has little parameters that
Really?
all this sampling, the only two places that we had any issue on the avenue was because it was coal ash. It had nothing to do with spills or anything like that. So I mean, we certainly do a presumptory testing, but I have a strong opinion that would
It was
be.
just something, it was just something about being brought up. that's
I
all.
brought that up because, I brought that up
Oh,
only in
yeah.
reference to the community garden, so that if there is going to be people growing food, it should be tested, and if there's lead,
You generally have elevated bases, isn't that sort of important?
well, that's the, if you do that, that works.
No, I was just curious as to what the, because every of the beds I've seen are all elevated, so my assumption is that we're building on top of the ground, so it's an important facility you're gonna grow with.
That'd be
I understand your concern, but
Right.
certainly you can do they used to call it the priority food plus 40 test, the new name for it now, but, and that covers, all the basic parameters that the
Right.
DEP is looking for.
The other thing is the placement of the garden. There's a bit of an issue, and that's going to be, if gardens need sun, and the sun is where
Well,
the
that's,
garden field is, right?
well, that's the only area that we can really put a garden in. And that's the reason why I say we might have to cut down some of those cedar trees in order to get more sunlight. But that's not a bad spot. I mean, it actually takes up that space behind the dugout, baseball field dugout, which is not really used much for anything. And we do have a lot of overgrowth there. So that's where, you know, we're planning on putting it. We'll see what happens.
I'd just like to offer a comment at how much of a outcry there was in the community when the trees were removed in Feaster Park. And I think that not only amongst folks who care about urban canopies, but even like we heard kids in the neighborhood who were like, I cut down my favorite tree and I miss it. And you know, I think I have a real concern about the removal of trees for the sake of a community garden. It just feels a little backwards. Especially when there are other community garden spaces that lay fallow in Recreation Park, at Jones Avenue, behind the Paul Robeson School. So I personally would just offer the feedback that I would not remove trees over a community garden at this point. I think that there are many options. Even the organic gardens over at the university, you know, if folks are looking for gardening options, there are many. If we add them though, you know, certainly that's lovely, but to remove large trees from this park, I think would really impact the community negatively.
Thank you. Is there anybody else have any comments? All right, nobody else has any comments, feel free to, oh, sorry.
Yeah, there was a question about the crosswalk enhancements, pedestrian safety there. If you could just say a little bit more about what that will look like.
We'll try to clean it in such a way where we just recently put in flashing school crossing signs at charter school. Our intention would be to do that at both intersections and enhance the line striping. Perhaps we can look at the street lights, like for example at the charter school we added a brand new LED street light, much brighter, lighted up. So those are very simple things that we can do, and that's the type of nation and that's the approach we're taking.
Are the basketball courts going to be lit at night?
I mean, I'd like to have lights, that's something that we're gonna have to discuss, but I would like to have lights on all night long, just for security reasons. Park being dark, just gives cover to the element that we don't want.
Right.
So, but by lighting up that canopy area, that'll enhance and that'll brighten it. We may not have spotlights down on the
Right.
but we would have area lights for
you know,
security purposes.
Night basketball courts are kind of nice.
Yeah, but parks closed by ordinance about an hour after sunset.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
we'll keep the lights on, obviously through photo cells or timers, but,
Okay.
you know, we don't want to encourage nighttime leagues.
Okay. Okay.
So just for everyone's benefit, a lot of good information. Maybe, Ms. Malika, you can give us just one more time the website, how else can the public participate, and what will happen with this information, please?
So we have public surveys in English and Spanish on the city website, and you can get to them by going to cityofnewbrunswick.org/survey. That takes you to a page with all of the background information to the two surveys. That information gets amassed, comes to me twice a week, and I will include whatever we receive before February 4th, I will include in my application, and whatever we receive between then and February 21st, will be included in an addendum, so that the DEP can get a good handle on what our public feels is significant there.
What about the information collected tonight?
And that as well.
Will be available on the website.
It'll be available for my application.
It'll be submitted with the application.
Yeah, it can be submitted with the application, absolutely.
That's great.
Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, if not, feel free to, you know, look at the concepts, and we're available if there's any more questions.